What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the NHL Stochastic Strategy Show. I don't know where I'm going with that. I wanted to say that I'm in the basement. You can see that I'm in the basement. My wife got a little tied up at work. How selfish of her. But me and Agent Spencer are here in the basement. We're rocking out. I have been doing NHL DFS touting since 2015. You a bit longer. We've broken down probably thousands of slates. This honestly is the worst slate I've ever seen. But we're here. We're here. And we're going to break it down. We were just talking before the show that if you took the injured players on this slate, it would absolutely field the best team on the slate. Last night, Toronto 2, Tampa 2, absolute nuke job there. Before we get into this slate, we had in our Discord, we had AMG 77 shipped a $3 5 max. He had Vegas 1, Toronto 2, absolute nuke. Winning a 5 max by over 10 points is, more than the goal, obviously. So congrats to you. Turning $3 into $200. That is a 66 and a third X or something. I don't know. But anyway, helping me to break this atrocity down. Slim Cliffy, what's going on?
Yeah, not a whole lot. I didn't have it I didn't cash last night. I didn't have a terrible line. I've had some pretty bad lineups this season. Last night wasn't one of them. Went with had the Buffalo top line. At least Tage got us one goal mercifully. I had a Colorado stack with Devin Taves. That was all right, but obviously it wasn't near enough because John Tavares and William Nylander went absolute nuke. My beloved Montreal Canadiens got their ass beat last night. It was one of those games where I went and checked the fancy stats after, and the expected goals for against at 5-on-5 were pretty similar. If you watch that game, it was shocking that Montreal wasn't down 5-1 after the first period. Honestly, it was one of those games where they gave up 6 goals, and it could have been 10 if it weren't for Sam Montembeault. So not a good game from them. Phil Broberg, 4-point night. He was in the winning lineup in the $12, I think. He's had a real good season for St. Louis. But yes, we have 4 games on the board here tonight. It's one of those things where, if this was the first day of the season, it'd be a pretty interesting slate. But as you mentioned, listen to these injuries. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Elias Pettersson, Philip Hedl, Tyler Seguin, Matt Barzal, Robbie Fabry, Cody Glass, Jason Dickinson, Trent Frederick, Isaac Lundestrom, Jack Hughes. Those are just the centers missing. It's a 4-game slate, and McDavid, Draisaitl, Pettersson, Hedl, Barzal, and Jack Hughes are all out. On the blue line, obviously, no Dougie Hamilton, no Miro Heiskanen, no Charlie McAvoy. There is a lot of talent missing from these lineups. That's what makes it such an interesting slate. Honestly, there are definitely some chalk spots. There's one particular road team that I think is going to be very chalky tonight, but we'll break these games down. I don't think you can. You'll make a lineup that won't win. I don't think you can make a bad lineup tonight, if you know what I mean. So let's see how these 4 games go.
Yeah. This is a mess. But, everyone's got to play with the same player pool, so it's not like anyone has a distinct advantage except for Jake and his chiseled jaw with his Onyx salary cap. Not sure he needs the extra salary cap here tonight, but before we get into this slate, I see a couple people in chat. Michael Kennedy won the Bet 365 free game with Tampa 2 and Toronto 2. I think there's decent money in that. I think I haven't checked. I'm new to oblivion on Bet 365, so I don't really log on there anymore. Clue, our Alaskan dog trainer, if I'm thinking of the right person, maybe not, but she'll remind me. $200, yeah, for free. Into $200. That's really good. She won the dime time. Some good stuff. Like Cliffy, I didn't cash. I was really close. If they left in the Shushkin goal from Makar, it is Wolfgirl. Yeah, I was right. If they left in the Shushkin goal from Makar, the first one, instead of just changing it to Makar, I would have cashed. But, Nishushkin didn't touch it. It is what it is. I had Calgary. I talked myself into Calgary. They did all right for their price. So had Igor. He was a couple saves away from the saves bonus, but the Rangers looked anemic last night, but that's not really surprising. And I don't want to talk about that. I'd rather talk about this slate. Not really, but before we get into it, just want to let you know, if you didn't know, if you haven't watched the show, if you've been living under a rock, MLB season starts tomorrow, 4:05 Eastern lock, a 9-game slate, I believe. If you want access to all the MLB tools Stochastic has to offer, including the Sims, for $1 until April 4th, you click the link in the chat, use promo code CYCLE. You can do weekly or monthly, because if you're planning on renewing, monthly makes more sense. It's as we talk about with defenseman price per dollar. The price per dollar on the monthly is much better than weekly. So you can do that. Promo code CYCLE, $1. It will renew on April 4th if you're planning on renewing at the normal price. So let's get into this thing we call a hockey slate. Vancouver Canucks with a 2.7 total heading into Long Island. Of course, we had to go into Long Island on this idiotic slate. The Islanders have a 2.7. Islanders going Horvat, Palmieri, Holmstrom, Lee, Pajot, Duclair. Canucks going Besser, DeBrus, Suter, Garland, Lekaramaki, Bluger, Sherwood, O'Connor, Aturati. I'm only mentioning that because there's 2% ownership on that line. Not sure there's an expensive line that you really need for that line, but let's talk about it. Top line for the Islanders generally is chalk. For some reason on this slate, they're not. They're 18,100 and it's fine. Like, that price is fine for them. They've actually been pretty decent in a 60-minute sample. They're fully correlated. 14% top 2 stack, 6.3% projected ownership. They're going to see a fair bit of that Pia Suter line. The one thing I will say about the Canucks, despite all the injuries like Keedle and Pettersson being out, it doesn't truly affect them defensively. They still have a good penalty kill. They still have good defensive players. Like, these guys moving up, like Pia Suter, he's a good player. He's a good two-way player. Teddy Bluger, more of a defensive guy. You know what I mean? So these top lines for the Islanders aren't going to get elite 5-on-5 matchups despite, these guys being out. That being said, at 6% fully correlated Islanders top line, on this slate, you have to consider 3 expected goals per 64 and change actual. The thing is, like, their power play blows, and Vancouver has a good penalty kill. So at the end of the day, I'll probably look elsewhere in single entry. But at that ownership, when they're usually like 14, 15% on 9-game slates, you have to consider them. I think the second line is a little bit more interesting because the power play really doesn't matter. And Lee, Pajot, Duclair at 14-1 with 3.6% projected ownership. In a similar sample, 3.6 expected goals per 60, 2.2 actual. Their shooting percentage is low, but they're going to get secondary matchups, and they're $4,000 cheaper coming in at half the ownership. So if I was going to play an Islanders line, which I wouldn't probably do on a 1-game slate, it would be the Lee, Pajot, Duclair line. On the Vancouver side, I think it would be Suter, DeBrusque, Besser. And that's really it. They're fully correlated. The Islanders penalty kill absolutely is atrocious. Not that Vancouver's power play is anything decent without these guys. However, Quinn Hughes is in the lineup, and when Quinn Hughes is in the lineup, their expected goals numbers are like 30% higher. And plus, Pettersson's having an awful season, so Suter getting minutes with these guys might actually be better than Pettersson getting minutes with these guys. So at 15.7 and bang on their top 2 stack at 9.3% projected, I think the Vancouver top line is my favorite line in this game. Vancouver 1, Islanders 2. If I didn't have to play anything from this game, I'd be happy, but it's a 4-game slate, and I don't want to X anything out.
Yeah, I'll start on the Vancouver side, and I think the point you made about Suter and Pettersson is kind of the most important. I mean, besides Quinn Hughes being healthy in the lineup, that's always the most important thing about Vancouver. But your point about Suter and Pettersson is pretty important here. It's like if this was 15 months ago and Pettersson is out and Pius Suter's on the top line, it's like, not sure. Given how Elias Pettersson has played this season, it's like, how much worse is Pius Suter really? And is Pius Suter better than Elias Pettersson like right now? Like, obviously I don't think he's the quote better player, given we know Pettersson's been playing through injuries and we like the production's been what the production's been. Like, it's been awful. How much worse is Pius Suter right now? You know what I mean? So I think I kind of agree with you on Vancouver. Like, I don't mind that top line. They got a lot of minutes last game. Like I know it was an overtime game, but they were all over 20 minutes. I think Suter pushed 23 minutes. It was a career high. That line's 15,700 coming in under 10% ownership. All on the top power play unit. And again, while I don't think Suter's a better player than Pettersson, given how Pettersson has played, how much is losing Pettersson and adding Suter to that power play really going to hurt them? As long as Quinn Hughes is healthy, I think it's perfectly fine. Suter and Jake DeBrusk, they've been able to drive the play pretty well together when they played this season. 2.7 expected goals for, 1.9 against. Like, that's fairly dominant play. It's a 180-minute sample, so it's not huge, but it's not a small sample either. 2.7 actual goals per 60 minutes. I kind of like Vancouver 1 here. I'm generally not a fan of playing the Canucks, but honestly, like, just look at the rest of the slate. If you're playing DFS tonight, you have to play somebody, unless you just put an empty lineup, I guess. I don't mind Vancouver 1 here, considering that they're a mid-price stack. You put him with Quinn Hughes, and you can still comfortably fit in another mid-price stack with them. Like, that's kind of my point here. And we'll get to the defenseman later. You might want to play Quinn Hughes here tonight. So I do like Vancouver 1. They Suter and DeBrusk have been good. They get a ton of minutes. They're facing a bad penalty kill. They're under 16K. I do like Vancouver 1. Vancouver, the rest of the lineup, I don't mind them. I think I'd be more inclined to play one-offs, like a one-off Connor Garland. Even if Connor Garland's not on the top power play unit, with all their injuries and how he's usually used, he'll still probably get 18-plus minutes. Jonathan Lekkerimäki, he's been on and off the power play unit, but he's a good, goal-scoring prospect. Drew O'Connor can put up decent shot volume if he actually gets minutes, though I'm not sure if he'll necessarily be doing that long-term in Vancouver. So, like, there are some one-offs in the depth I don't mind if you are playing elsewhere, but if I'm stacking, it's going to that Vancouver top line. On the Islanders side, I think I'm with you on Islanders too. Lee, Pajot, and Duclair. The reason is, again, we'll get to defensemen. I really don't like the defensemen on the board here, the cheap ones. Like, I do think it's a night where you should probably have 4K plus defensemen in your lineup. And for that reason, like 18,100 for an Islanders top line that, okay, they're perfectly correlated on the power play. Their power play is awful. And the Vancouver penalty kill is one of the best in the league. So I don't really have a ton of interest in Islanders 1. I think for me, it would be Islanders 2. Only 55 minutes together, but 69 shot attempts, 3.5 expected goals per 60. They don't get a ton of minutes, and I don't think they'll play a ton with Hudson Fasching back on the third line. Like, they'll probably play 14, maybe Pajot gets up close to like 17, 18 minutes. But at 14,100, I think that's perfectly fine. I do like that Islanders second line as a mid-price stack. Islanders 1, like, if you want to play him because they have positive leverage, no issue with that. But if I'm playing a top line in this game, I think it's Vancouver. Islanders 3, I think, is playable. But again, as you mentioned, I don't think there's a need for like a sub 10K line here tonight. So for me, it goes Vancouver 1, Islanders 2. And then maybe some one-offs from either side, like Bo Horvat one-off or Connor Garland one-off, something like that.
Yeah. New Jersey Devils. Oh, I definitely have the Chicago total wrong. They do not have a 3.3, but the New Jersey Devils have a 3.2 total heading into Chicago. I think they're like 2.4. 2.4. Yeah. Good stuff, Chicago. Devils. Cody Glass is out. We don't have definitive lines in our top stacks. We have Meyer, Heischer, Nason, Bratt, Mercer, Palat, Haula, Tatar, Cotter. It may not be Nason. It may be Palat. It may be Cotter. It may be Tatar. Could be Haula, but I don't think so. Like, without Glass, I need a third line center, and that's probably going to be Eric Haula. So it's going to be Timo Meyer, Nico Heischer, X. And, you know, how Nason's 4,900. Everyone else is cheaper. So I don't know. I mean, they could use Justin Dowling, but he's a defenseman, right? So, like, I don't know. This is an elite matchup for the Devils at 5-on-5. There's nothing coming back from Chicago that is worth a damn, especially with Dickinson out. Like, this might be the worst defensive team in the league right now. Arguably, the Devils are right there, too.
I was going to say, I think two of the worst teams are playing each other in this game.
We'll get to that in a second. But, you know, if it is Meyer, Hischer, and Nason, they're 19-9 with a 36% top two stack and a 25.1% projected ownership. Now, that's fine. It's not the best power play spot, although since Jones left and their injuries and all this shit, like their penalty kill has been sliding. So, like, obviously the Devils are going to be chalk here tonight, and obviously these top guys are going to play heavy minutes. It's just, you know, for Timo Meyer and Nico Heischer, you're spending $15,000 right there already. Like, it's probably fine. It's just going to be a lot of people's first clicks. You know what I mean? Because the Devils are a perceived good team, even though they're missing Dougie and Jack Hughes. Like, Hischer and Meyer are really good players, and it's an elite 5-on-5 matchup. So while I don't have any issue with the Devils top line, I don't know if I would just go Hischer, Meyer, and call it a day. Maybe I'd add in Bratt. We have to see what the lines look like, because if it's like Tatar, that line is $200 cheaper. If it's just ran over his foot with his car. If it's Palat, it's like $1,000 cheaper. So with Nason there at 19.9, it's just really expensive. And Nason plays like 15 minutes, you know what I mean? So I'd rather have like a Palat or Tatar there, knowing they're going to play 13, 14 minutes, almost the same as Nason, but it's a lot cheaper. If you want to go really expensive, I go Meyer, Heischer, Bratt. I don't want to stack the second line, Mercer, Bratt, Palat, assuming they're together at $16K for 15% projected ownership. At that point, I'm just going to go play Vancouver 1. You know what I mean? So I think a Bratt one-off is perfectly acceptable, a Timo one-off, a Heischer one-off. I just don't know if I'm going to full stack anything until I see the lines, because I don't want to pay essentially $20K for a line with Stefan Nason not on the top power play playing 15 minutes. So, you know, I like these guys. I just want to see what the line combinations are. On the Chicago side, Bedard, Donato, Nazar at 16.3, coming in at 6.3% projected ownership is very interesting to me. Now, they're a bag of ass defensively. So don't get me wrong. They're atrocious defensively, but they're still generating 3.05 expected goals per 60. You get Bedard, Donato on the top power play. The Devils, since losing Siegenthaler and Hamilton and Hughes, they're atrocious defensively. So would I rather play Nico Heischer at 25% or Connor Bedard at 6%? I think the answer is Connor Bedard. That's like honestly famous last words on the slate, because the Devils could just end up nuking them, and then, you know, I'll be staring up at all the chalk above me. But I do like this Bedard, Donato, Nazar line. Outside of Bedard, the best player offensively on this team is Ryan Donato. So I like the look at this line at 16.3. Yeah, they don't control the lion's share of the play, but the Devils aren't anything good defensively. So it would be both top lines. I think I prefer the Chicago top line as a stack. With the Devils guys, I think I'm more likely to one off.
Yeah. Not that I'm really a huge fan of the Chicago Blackhawks. This almost feels like one of those games where I'm just going to pray that they can hold New Jersey to 2 or fewer goals. Like, I'm not super keen on the Devils here. Like, Meyer and Hischer haven't really done a whole lot at 5-on-5 since the Four Nations break. 130 minutes in their last 10 games. I was looking basically since Dougie Hamilton got hurt, or Jack Hughes got hurt, sorry. 56 shot attempts, 3.1 expected goals, 2.2 actual goals per 60. They've had fairly high expected goals rates all season and not converted them into actual goals. It's kind of, the Ottawa Senators have had that problem at times. Certainly the Carolina Hurricanes. They're getting a lot of ice time, though. That's kind of where I'm getting crossed up, is like Meyer and Hischier are definitely going to play 20 plus, unless it's a blowout. And if it's a blowout, they're probably involved. So they'll, Meyer 20, Hischier 22, 23. That's where I'm getting kind of crossed up. But Jason Dickinson out definitely hurts Chicago, but Mikheyev and Teravainen have played almost 250 minutes without Dickinson this season. They're at 50 shot attempts against, 2.1 expected goals against per 60. Now, the actual goals against are pretty bad because this is still the Chicago Blackhawks. But defensively, that line's been fine at almost, dare I say, good. So you put all that together with the Blackhawks penalty kill being anywhere from above average to legitimately good. I do think there are reasons to not stack the New Jersey top line at 20K here tonight. Again, like I said, I think you're probably going to want to pay up for defense here tonight. So paying 20K for a top line might not necessarily be in the cards. So I think I'm kind of out on New Jersey 1. New Jersey 2, I don't know, man. Brad and Mercer don't really have much of a sample together. The sample they do have is absolutely awful, especially without any of their top centers. You and I mean, I'm not going to speak for you, but I think I can. We're not Dawson Mercer fans by any stretch of the imagination. I do not think that he's not a second line center in the National Hockey League. I don't even think he's a third line center in the National Hockey League, to be honest with you. I don't know how much worse a Dawson Mercer centered line will be than the third line from Chicago. I really don't. And it's not to say that they can't score, because Bratt, he might be the best offensive player in this game. So just by virtue of playing next to Jesper Bratt, they might be able to do something together. But again, where it's not a good power play spot, I'd be more inclined to one off Jesper Bratt, one off Nico Hischier, something like that, than I would be to full stack. This just is not a good team. And I know they're playing the Chicago Blackhawks. Chicago's definitely worse. But given the fact that, ownership projections here tonight, the highest ownership projected player, the fourth highest, the fifth highest, the seventh highest, the 11th highest, the 15th and 16th highest are all from New Jersey. It almost feels like one of those nights where I kind of want to bet on Spencer Nightingale rather than bet on the New Jersey Devils. So I'm kind of out on New Jersey. As far as Chicago goes, Bedard and Donato at least have been scoring 2.6 expected goals, 2.7 actual goals per 60 in 285 minutes together this season. Both are on the top power play unit. They're going to avoid the Hischier line, which means they're going up against Dawson Mercer. They're going up against Eric Holla. Their power play has been better since they traded Seth Jones than I expected, but it's also because they're shooting 27%. That's not going to last. They're shooting 15, 16%. They would be below league average. So not that their power play is great, but I honestly think the Devils' penalty kill is worse at this point than Chicago's is. So I don't mind that Chicago one line. If you want to take out Nazar and put in Teravainen or Bertuzzi for extra power play exposure, I don't mind that. But I think I'm with you. I think I'm in on Chicago one. I'm not in on the rest of the Chicago lines. If you want to play a two-man of Mikheyev, Teravainen, I think that's okay, just because I don't think the Hischier matchup is necessarily that bad. Mikheyev and Teravainen have been good defensively this season, been below league average offensively, but I think that's about what you'd expect from a Chicago Blackhawks line. So for me in this game, it goes Chicago 1, maybe some one-offs from New Jersey. I think Chicago too is playable, but I'm not necessarily in on the depth from Chicago here unless you're playing some of the power play guys. I think this game is about the Chicago top line.
Yeah, I prefer the Chicago top line too, which is obviously famous last words, but it is what it is on this slate. Boston Bruins with a 2.8 total heading into Anaheim. The Ducks have a 3.1. Boston lines are projected from their last game, which was David Pastrnak, Casey Middlestat, Marat Kuznetsov. Sorry, I butchered that. Geeky, Zaka, Lysell, Elias Lindholm, Vinny Lettieri, Cole Kepke.
They literally just hit the ice for morning skate, and those were the lines at morning skate.
There you go. What a bag of ass. Anaheim going Vetrano, Terry Strome, McTavish, Zegras, Nesterenko, Gauthier, Kaloran, Carlson. Listen, the Pastrnak line is 15-7, and they have a 21.1% projected ownership. It's a really, really good power play spot. But like Boston's power play isn't very good. You do get 2 of the 3 guys on that unit. Like Casey Middlestat's cheap enough where you can pair him with Pastrnak and like a Mason Lowry and you go about your day. That's probably the only thing I'm super interested in is Pastrnak as a one-off or pairing him with Lowry at most going Middlestat, Pastrnak, Lowry. I don't have a ton of interest in anything besides that. Elias Lindholm on the third line is still 5,300. Sorry, I had a sneeze there. So I really, outside of like a Pastrnak one-off, the most Middlestat, Pastrnak, Lowry, I don't have a ton of interest in Boston. Like I'm not playing that second line at 14.5% projected. Not playing that third line at 5.3% projected. So I know Pasternak's going to get a ton of ownership, but he also has his projection is 5 DK points higher than the next guy on the stochastic projections. His is like 19 and change, and then Quinn Hughes is second, 14 and change. So it's just like he's arguably the best play in the slate. I don't really care about his ownership. If you want off him, there's so many ways to get different. So that's where I'm at on the Boston side. On the Duck side, like Vetrano, Terry Strome, they're 16K. They're fully correlated. 13.7% top 2 stack, 15% projected ownership. I think they're fine. But now that, they're running 3 lines, their minutes haven't been great. They are fully correlated, but not on the unit I prefer. I want the Jackson Lacombe unit. And that unit is Carlson, Zegras, McTavish, Lacombe, and I think Gauthier. So I think I would dip down to McTavish, Zegras, Nesterenko. If you want to leave off Nesterenko and add in like a Leo Carlson for a double center power play stack, I think that's fine because they're also going to see like middle 6, bottom 6 matchups from the Bruins, and that team is absolutely gutted. So while I'm fine with Anaheim 1, I think I prefer the depth lines of McTavish, Zegras, or Carlson, Gauthier. I think I would go McTavish, Zegras, and leave off Nesterenko and add in a third guy from that Jackson Lacombe unit.
Yeah. Further to your point about David Pastrnak, his point projection is like 4.4 points higher, fantasy points higher than the next closest player. Not only does he have the highest point projection by a wide margin, he has the highest fantasy points per dollar projection by a wide margin. Like he is the best play on the slate here tonight. That's why his ownership projection is pushing 30%. Considering in some single entries, he's probably going to be like 40 to 50% owned. I think you can fade him. He is the single best play on the slate here tonight. Like that's just the way it is. No matter who he's with, he can create something out of nothing. And he can score well, no matter honestly, like he's getting basically an also ran from Colorado, and he's getting an also ran from Minnesota. Now, things have been a little bit grim for him lately. His last 5 games, he doesn't have a goal. His last 5 games, he's I think it's reached the shot bonus once, which for most players that'd be pretty good. For David Pastrnak, 13 shots in 5 games really isn't a whole lot. But the Anaheim Ducks aren't a great defensive team. John Gibson's starting, not Lucas Dostal. So yeah, Pasternak, Middlestat, 2-man. Like if you want to go in that direction, I think that's perfectly fine. You want to do like a geeky Pasternak 2-man, I think that's okay, just because they do play on the power play together. David Pasternak is the best play on the slate. It's just a matter of, do you want to put other Boston Bruins with them? Like maybe you put one with them. I don't think this isn't a situation where I'm like 4-man stacking from the Bruins. It's definitely just David Pasternak. On the Anaheim side, for Toronto, Terry Strome, like they've still been able to score well at 5-on-5, 2.9 expected goals, 2.8 actual goals since the Four Nations Cup. I agree with you. I think Zegras and McTavish are kind of the most interesting line here. As you mentioned, with their power play units, McTavish and Zegras play on the Jackson Lacombe unit, which is, again, probably the one that you want to be on. McTavish and Zegras over 165 minutes together this season, 3 expected goals, 3.2 actual goals per 60 minutes. Like Mason McTavish has been a pretty good offensive player. He just typically hasn't gotten a ton of minutes. And, none of these guys are going to get a ton of minutes. Like maybe Troy Terry gets up to 19. It's kind of like that Dallas Stars problem. We'll talk about Dallas next, where like, in Dallas, it used to be Wyatt Johnston would play 19 minutes and then everybody else would be like 14 to 17. That's basically what's going to happen to Anaheim. So in that kind of situation, I'll save this, $2,500 and dip down to McTavish, Zegras, Nestorenko. If you want to leave Nestorenko off, I think that's fine. You can add in like a Leo Carlson or just throw a defenseman on the blue line or something like that if you want. But they've been good offensively at 5-on-5. Power play has been okay. Definitely not good, but okay. And, they'll play 14 to 16 minutes, which is what most Anaheim forwards will play. So I agree. For me, it's the Zegras line. I have no problem playing the Terry line. They've been together all season. They've been scoring well enough all season. Terry will probably lead their forwards in minutes. They're fine at 16K, but for me, it's the Zegras line. So it's the Zegras. It's Pasternak at the top, and then it's a gap, a huge gap, and then it's Zegras, McTavish. And then after that, go with God.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Terry makes sense because he shoots the puck and he's going to play the most. I think I'd rather one off Troy Terry than stack that top line just because, the Zellweger unit is fine, but whatever. I prefer the Jackson Lacombe unit. Let's talk about this last game here. Dallas Stars with a 3.2 total. Heading into Edmonton, the Oilers have a 2.9. Obviously, no McDavid or Draisaitl for Edmonton. Edmonton running back, Nugent Hopkins, Arvidsson, Podkolzin, Hyman, Henry, Corey Perry, Skinner, Connor Brown, Matthias Janmark. For some reason, that line is getting 6.7% projected ownership. Why? Dallas sucks.
Hyman and Henry had Kapanen with them.
Kapanen, right.
Yeah, they moved Corey Perry down.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Dallas going, well, this is projected for Dallas. They ran the second half of their last game like this. So it's possible they run this back. Rantanen, Hintz, Marchment, Robertson, Duchesne, Granlund, Johnston, Ben, Dadonov. Now, if they run these lines, both the Hintz line and the Duchesne line would be 18,200. Now, I don't have a ton of interest in playing either of them at that price, but I prefer the Duchesne line. Hintz and Rantanen in a 60-minute sample have not been very good, and most of those minutes are with Jason Robertson. I like Mason Marchment, don't get me wrong, but he is not in the same stratosphere as Jason Robertson. Duchesne and Robertson have played some this year. Granlund is good offensively. He's absolute black hole defensively, but we don't care about that if you're stacking Dallas for the offense. So if I had to stack one of these 18,200 lines, it would be Duchesne, Granlund, Robertson. I don't really want to dip down to Johnston, Ben, Dadonov because Dadonov sucks. Johnston's minutes have been down. Ben isn't on the top power play unit. And Edmonton still has their full accompaniment of defensemen. So I don't really love Dallas here. But again, if I had to play Dallas, they have a 3.2 total. It would be Duchesne, Granlund, Robertson. On the Edmonton side, There is 13% coming in on Nugent Hopkins, Arvidsson, Podkolzin, mostly because Nugent Hopkins scored a hat trick in their last game. I'm sure that is why. But they also get a decent matchup here, and you do get 2 of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. And we've talked a ton about how Dallas has struggled defensively and on the penalty kill since Miro Heiskanen went down. That Hintz-Rant and Marchment line isn't going to be good defensively. So I have no issues using Edmonton 1 here as a filler at 13-7. I kind of like Edmonton 2 better, Henrique, Hyman, Kapanen, just from the sense that, like, you could do whatever you want with Kapanen. He's 2,600. I think I just like the 2-man of Henrique, Hyman better. That's just personal preference. If you want to go to Nugent Hopkins, Arvidsson, that's fine. I think there's 2 playable lines because they're both right around the same price. They're both getting double-digit ownership. You want to go chase the points with Nugent Hopkins, Arvidsson, I think that's fine. They're in the better 5-on-5 spot. But again, Henrique, Hyman may see – they're not going to see the Harley pair. They may see CC. So really, it could be just as good. I think Zach Hyman at this point is their best offensive player. That's why I'm going to Henrique Hyman. So I think Edmonton has 2 playable lines. I would go to Dallas 2 here. But honestly, I think, like, if I was going to play, my favorite play in this game would be, using players from the blue line here.
Did you know Mikko Rantanen has 1 game with 20 DraftKings points in the last 10 weeks?
It was probably next to Nathan McKinnon.
No, I think there was 1 game. Maybe it was his first game in Dallas or his last game in Carolina, like something like that. Anyways, 1 game with 20 DK points. The last time Dallas was on the slate, was it Monday? We talked about how he was overpriced because his minutes were going down, which was causing him being overpriced. That was at 7,400. Now he's at 7,500, and he played 16 minutes last game. This is that I'm not comparing him to Matthew Nye specifically, but we talked about that with Toronto yesterday, where Nyes is overpriced for what he's done, and Rantanen is the same thing. Like, if Mikko Rantanen was 7,500 playing 23 minutes a game next to Nathan McKinnon, he'd be the first guy in my lineup. Well, after Nathan McKinnon, probably. Mikko Rantanen at 7,500 playing 16 to 18 minutes on a top line with Mason Marchment is not the same thing. I just think he's wildly overpriced for what he's done. Marchment's a good player. I like him. If you want to one-off Marchment, 4,600, I think that's fine. But, I don't have any interest in playing Mikko Rantanen at $7,500, even on a 4-game slate, unless I was multi-entering. In a single entry, it's just an easy pass for me. Like, I'll go pay the extra $1,100 for David Pastrnak. Honestly, I would probably rather play like Jesper Bratt. I'm not really kidding here. So for me, and I'm out on Dallas 3. Like, that third line's just not been that good. They've had a really hot shooting percentage. They're shooting 16%, just absolutely absurd. That's going to come crashing down. So I'm out on them. So by default, it's Dallas 2. It's Robertson, Duchesne, Granlund. Duchesne and Granlund typically been good offensively together. Duchesne and Jason Robertson have played some time together this season, and they've been good offensively. They're not going to get a lot of ice time. But I'm not playing a way overpriced Mikko Rantanen. I'm not playing a bad third line. So for me, from Dallas, it's Dallas 2. I guess on the Edmonton side, like, they're getting a lot of ownership. I don't think it's just because of hat trick. Like, what Nugent Hopkins played the other night, 23 minutes or something like that.
Oh yeah, they played wild minutes.
Yeah, they have no choice but to play him a bunch of minutes, right? With Draisaitl and McDavid out. And Nugent Hopkins, that top line, has played 90 minutes together this season. 69 shot attempts, 2.5 expected goals, 4 actual goals per 60 minutes. Shooting 13.5%, which is high, but even at 10%, they'd be at 3 goals per 60, which is pretty good at 5-on-5. You get 2 guys on the top power play unit. I know they scored twice against Seattle on the power play. I do wonder if that power play is actually going to be good with Draisaitl and McDavid out. But I guess they won't be out long enough for us to really find out. But yeah, that line at 13,700, if you are playing, like an expense that, that Islanders top line or the New Jersey top line, I think Edmonton 1 is perfectly fine to pair with them. I don't mind a two-man of Henrique and Hyman. Again, they have played well together this season. 4.1 expected goals, 61 shot attempts, 2.6 actual goals per 60. Hyman on the top power play unit. But I think it's Edmonton 1 that I would play on the Edmonton side. And if you want to take out Podkolzin and put in Hyman or put in Skinner or something like that, I think that's perfectly fine. But for me, oh, hey, buddy. It's Edmonton 1, Dallas 2, and then after that, it's some one-offs.
Hi. Yeah. Hey. Hello. Let's talk about defensemen here. The top of the board, Quinn Hughes, Noah Dobson, Evan Bouchard, Thomas Harley, Tony DeAngelo, Luke Hughes, Jake Wallman, Darnell Nurse, Jacob Trouba. I think Quinn Hughes is easily the top play on the blue line. I'm fine with Dobson. I know their power play sucks, but he's been playing 21 to 24 minutes, and for him, that's a lot of ice time. The Edmonton blue line guys are super interesting. Bouchard, Nurse, Wallman, Ekholm. They're all in the same range besides Bouchard. I'd probably, if you're not stacking Bouchard for the power play, I'd go Nurse and Wallman. But this, again, as you mentioned, this is a good night to spend up for defensemen. There isn't much in the lower range, so it would be these expensive guys.
Quinn Hughes is the top of the board. He is projected for 3 more DK points, and the next closest guy also has the highest point per dollar value. So yeah, it's Quinn Hughes. After him, like Evan Bouchard and Jake Wallman both have better point per dollar values. I don't mind Thomas Harley here. Harley scored his 15th goal of the season the other day. I was looking, I think it's only him, Quinn Hughes, and Cale Makar that have scored at least 15 goals as defensemen in the last 2 seasons. And if you've looked at Harley's game logs, the last 5 games, 25.5 minutes, 25.5 minutes, 31 minutes, 25 minutes, 24 minutes. This guy is logging a lot of ice time because they have no other choice. It's not that Harley's a great point per dollar value, but considering all the minutes that he has to play and how involved he is offensively, I don't mind Harley here either. Jake Wallman and Luke Hughes, if you want to go down a little bit. Wallman's not getting a ton of ice time, but it's not a bad matchup against Dallas. Dallas, we say it over and over, their defensive numbers have been sliding since they lost Heiskanen. Jackson Lacombe, I think, makes a ton of sense here at 4,600. He gets good minutes, good power play matchup for him, even if they don't have a good power play. If you want to play his teammate Olin Zellweger instead, I don't mind that, but I do think Lacombe is kind of a better peripheral play. Matthias Ekholm certainly in play for the Oilers. Alex Romanoff still gets good minutes for the Islanders, so if you don't want to pay up for Dobson, I think Romanoff is just fine. Once you get under 4K, like, it is tough sledding, man. Marcus Pettersson, Artem Levshunov, Cody Ceci, Louis Crevier, Brian Dumoulin, Derek Forbort. Like, honestly, like, these are the guys that are, amongst the top 10 projected in their price range with decent point per dollar values. There's just not a lot there. That's why I said earlier, I think this is a night where I might want to pay up for both my defensemen.
Let's talk about goalies. Spencer wants to talk about goalies. At the top of the board, there's Markstrom and Gibson, Sorokin and Ottinger. I'd probably be most likely to play Sorokin there. Gibson's fine because Boston's pretty bad defensively. I think Demko is the most interesting goalie to me. Skinner's fine. Swayman's fine. I think the 2 guys I'd take a gamble on here tonight are Demko and Knight. All these goalies are fine. If you like one, you play him. But for me, I think I would go Sorokin 1, Demko 2, Knight 3.
Yeah, Dostal is in the projections because we had assumed Dostal was starting, and the next run we'll have John Gibson. But Dostal was slightly higher than Ottinger by fantasy point projections here tonight. So yeah, I don't mind playing Gibson. Jake Ottinger is next. I think he does make sense at 7,800. Like, I know Edmonton put up 5 goals on Seattle. I don't think you can rely on them to be that good offensively every single night. So I do think that's fine. I also like Demko here just because it's the Islanders and he's 7,500. Like, he's not that expensive. But for me, I think it's probably between paying up for Sorokin or going down to Spencer Knight. I think Knight has a decent chance of seeing some good volume here tonight. And that's at 7,200 in a home matchup. I don't mind that.
Yep. We will be back tomorrow. Friday is to be determined. But we'll for sure be here.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
I mean, I'll say it right now. We're probably not going to be here on Friday because there's NCAA plus MLB. I imagine like we'll be playing for like handfuls of dollars on Friday in NHL. So I imagine it'll be Thursday, Saturday.
Yeah, maybe a Dairy Queen gift card. But who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Well, you said you liked him here tonight, and I like the team as well. Generally speaking, I'm going to go with Troy Terry.
Troy Terry. Let's see here. There's only so many teams on this slate. Going Ryan Donato. Screw the Devils again.
Yeah. Can't wait for that 7-0 Devils win. That's going to be awesome.
Or it's going to be a 3-point game because we need the Devils to lose. Or you don't really need the Devils to lose, but the Rangers suck. They should just, fold the franchise. But anyway, we will be back tomorrow. Good luck, everybody, tonight. Thanks for hanging out with us on this. I guess we could call it a 4-game slate, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Good luck tonight, everyone.